Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we praise and celebrate and hold in the light those who are truly making significant differences in our community. I'm Gary York, and I'm happy to be here and grateful for this opportunity to serve you today. I want to thank Wilkes Communications and River Street Productions and WIFM for this opportunity. And again, thank you for being with us. Our featured guest today is Earl Eller. He's a legend and a wonderful contributor in this Wilkes County. He grew up in Wilkes. He's a graduate of West Wilkes High School and Mars Hill College. He served the North Wilkes High School for 33 years as a teacher, as a coach, and as athletics director. He's also a member of the Wilkes County Hall of Fame, and we're honored to have him. And good morning, my friend.
Morning, Gary. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. So tell us about your mom and dad having such a positive influence in your life.
I'm fortunate, and I'm still fortunate to grow up in what I consider rural Wilkes County. My mom was Geneva Eller, and she worked at Public Work, worked at Wilkes Regional, or Wilkes General then, as a nurse aide. My father was a farmer for many years, and we were just taught a lot of good values that I'm afraid we're sliding away from sometimes today. Values of honesty and values of loyalty, and I like to feel like today that I'm here representing Mom and Dad and my family, brothers Larry and David, and I also like to feel like I'm representing, I keep saying rural Wilkes County because, I wasn't that far away from town, but I just feel more comfortable with rural folks. The Hayes community, the Mountain View community, the Trap Hill community are one of the most overlooked assets of this area. And I'm just proud to be here, and I hope I don't embarrass anybody.
Earl Eller, you're a wonderful contributor here, and you truly have made and are making and will make a difference. So you talked about raising chickens and having a two-story chicken house, and your daddy always emphasized doing your book work. So just a little bit of that, if you will.
Well, I tell people that we were not Dad was one of a few high school graduates for his time, and best I remember, the 11th grade graduated from then and be Mount Pleasant High School, and he was never a hardcore. I don't know whether he was proud of us when we made good grades, and I'm sure he was disappointed if we didn't. But at the same time, he never made an issue of it. He just made an issue of when we made good grades. And then we worked on the farm. We come in from school, we got a snack. And if we didn't have homework, he said, let's go. And we always had some chores. And Daddy basically on his deathbed was apologized to me. He said, if I had one thing to do over again, said I wouldn't work you boys so hard. And I said, Daddy, I've talked to Larry and I've talked to David. We appreciate you working us hard. We've all been what somebody I hope you can be proud of, and he told us that, how proud he was of us, and it was just meant a lot to me to be somebody that I feel like my folks were proud of. Yeah. I've done a lot of things, and he wouldn't have been proud of a lot of them, but always tell him everything.
So you're grateful for that opportunity and the little push, I guess, for you to be a great student. You went to Mars Hill and you came back and were able to secure that first position at North Wilkes High School. Tell us about that.
Let me go back just a second to college, and I tell a lot of people too that my dad cheated on me when I went to college because he must have studied, because every year that I was gone, he got smarter than I did. By the time I graduated from college, Dad was already smarter than me. I can't figure that out yet. But I do believe that every kid needs to spend some time away from home to learn to appreciate their mom and dad.
Right.
And then I took the job at North Wilkes. C. Wayne Bradburn was superintendent, and Paul Gregory was a principal up there, and he's deceased now. My high school football coach, Paul Wilbur, was real instrumental in pushing me to get that job, you know, and it was going to be the first year that North Wilkes had ever had football, 1968. East Wilkes had never had football, and Mr. Bradburn spent $2,500 for football uniforms for North and for East, and that was enough at that time to equip a new football program.
Yeah.
So that was my start, and I've had great people to work with over the years.
You told me about riding the roads, about meeting parents and having the sense of community there around your high school. Tell us a little bit about that wonderful support, Earl Eller, that I know that you had from parents.
Well, again, it's not so much about Earl Eller, it's just about I was fortunate to be around good people. I wanted to know my parents. If I'm going to teach a kid or if I'm going to coach a kid, I can't just coach that kid from 3:30 in the afternoon to 5:30.
Right.
I rode the roads. Mr. Gregory allotted me a little money early, and I bought some regulation-sized footballs and had no votes waiting in with the rollback top. I'd see a bunch of kids playing out in the yard playing basketball, and I've been known to trade them a football for a basketball.
All right.
And I reckon I stopped at every store or every business from Fair Plains to Austin, and that was about the extent of our school, school district, and up to McGrady Way. And I go in there and introduce myself, and everybody seemed to appreciate me taking the time to come by.
I bet.
And everybody said, if there's any way I can help, let me know. And I reminded him of that later. Thank you.
Earl Eller, tell us about being a teacher. You know, I understand the coaching and your love for football and track, but the classroom is so important for these youngsters that they were first student athletes, say student first. Tell us about how important it was to have good grades.
It was, football got labeled as a dumb person's sport early on. But I'm going to tell you, it's everything but. The thing I liked about teaching is the fact that it's watching kids or people, and I still watch it today. I do some work with people with addictions, and I do some work with volunteer work in the schools. And life is my happiness at this point in time in my life. I guess it's always been is working with people. Well, anybody can work with people, but I don't know whether I had a blessing or a knack or what. But it really excites me to watch people grow. It really excites me to ask a question in a biology class, and Emma in the back of the room be one of the first ones to raise her hand, and Emma was marked as a, you waste your time type person,
No, oh wow.
And the little gal when I was doing my student teaching at North Mecklenburg, it's in that Charlotte area, but we were going through Southern Association, and everybody showed up the same day to evaluate. And I had 7 evaluators in there evaluate me while I was doing my student teaching. Well, I'm not ignorant or stupid. I knew to say, tomorrow we're going to be on our best behavior because we'll have visitors. So we run out of time at the end of the class. I'd say, any questions? There wasn't any question. Oh, Sarah, I saw her back there in the back of the room looking, and she looked up a word in the back of her biology book. I had no idea what it meant. So I tried to fake it, and I'd had some Latin in college and started putting the words together and killed enough time that the bell rang. And she come up and she said, How'd I do, Coach Eller? I said, you done fine. Nobody picked up on it except my Mars Hill advisor, and he said, I'll give you a little advice, Earl. He said, don't try to wing. You just say, I don't know. I'll tell you tomorrow. So that was a valuable lesson early.
At the end of your football career, you became the athletic director, and you said you had 32 sports or 23?
We started out at North when I got there. I think we had 3 sports or sports teams. And when I left, we had 32.
32. And you also were instrumental in bringing the cheerleaders to hold them in the light, that's an important part of high school today.
I considered then and I consider now cheerleaders as being athletes.
Sure.
I know a lot of coaches don't, and I know a lot of people. But if you get out there and be with them, I sponsored cheerleaders for a couple of years because we didn't have anybody else to do it.
Yeah.
And the work they put into it and the rules and regulations, and we wrote up a constitution, and they didn't catch it till it was over with. But the last thing on the constitution was Coach Eller has final say-so. We'll vote on everything, but Earl gets more votes than anybody else. We pulled them in under the umbrella of the athletic department.
Sure, yeah.
Because I wanted some control is probably not a good word, but it's for lack of a better word, that's all I know. But I wanted them to have some accountability to somebody.
Sure, yeah. And you were about making good choices, about volunteering in the community, and by setting a good example for youngsters, they became better people just wanting to be around you.
I appreciate the compliment. I would hope so.
Sure.
I still keep in contact with a lot of my ex-players. I guess I call 2 or 3 a week, or they call me, and we just visit and visit. I rode up with the guy the other day. We had lost for, since 1972 when he graduated, and I found him, and he'd been living in Virginia, and he moved to South Carolina, and he's a hospice chaplain now. And
really?
He said, Coach, he said, I remember about you. He said, every once in a while I do my grandkids, and they say, Papa, why are you blowing your horn down people? You don't even know them. He said, blame Coach Eller. He said, we'd always ride down the road, and he'd take me home every day from practice. He'd blow the horn, and we'd all wave, and they'd say, who's that? He said, I don't know. I bet they're wondering the same thing.
Yeah. So you would make sure the kids had a ride to practice and back home every day.
We did. Tried to organize. We had some volunteers in the community, and I insisted that the coaches help us out, and they all of us did. You know, I had a wonderful staff of loyal people over the years, and as I told you the other day, I'm not going to start mentioning a lot of people,
sure.
But I think I can get by with mentioning Coach Wooten, Charles Wooten, for his loyalty over the years, and Coach Mike Green, who played at West and then played Appalachian, and he come in, and we've all been loyal to each other. I can name you 10 other people, but if I name 10, there's going to be a 11th one.
Sure.
But I can get by with naming those 2 because everybody knows that we mixed matched and we were all loyal to each other, too, and still are today.
Earl, this is a question that I must ask. Were you a great delegator? You said you had an offensive coordinator back when most folks didn't even have an assistant coach. I think that's an honorable thing for you to share with us.
Well, I felt like it was. I felt like it. You see, I wasn't such a great coach as I get credit for being. I had Mike and Charlie, and I wanted to bring it all in and mesh it together, but Charlie was going to be in charge of the defense, or Mike was going to be in charge of the defense, and I very seldom crossed over the line, and Charlie was in charge of our offensive backs, and I very seldom stepped in the backfield, and I coached the offensive line, and we would meet, and we would all say, pick each other apart, and But I've always been a control freak, so I didn't know that until just recently. But I reckon I've always been a control freak. I wanted to have the final say so.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was so fortunate to be able to put together the staff that I did.
Yeah.
Had a lot of other great people, but Mike and Charlie and myself, I asked a principal to hire Mike or Charlie first, and Mr. Gregory did, and Charlie interviewed, and that went good, and I went to him and I wanted to hire Mike, and Mr. Gregory did, and I hired them for a reason, not only for their football knowledge, but in high school and in college, we had different personalities in coaching staffs.
Yeah.
And me and Mike and Charlie stayed together for 12, 13, 14 years. And but we all kept our independence as our own personality. Mike was the bad guy. He was the hammer of the discipline end of it. Charlie was the straight guy. He always one that made us wear the right color socks.
Yeah, look good.
You look good. Keep your shirt and tails tucked in.
Right.
And I was turned loose to be the good guy and be the promoter.
Yeah. Good. So you had a lot of parents that all you could do is call on them, and they'd be right there to help you do anything you need to do. So it was a community team. Would you say that, Earl Eller?
Absolutely. They did. The community was second to none. And I'm not knocking my home community, but the Hayes, Trap Hill, Mountain View area, and the McGrady area, they get overlooked a lot. They still get overlooked a lot. But I'm going to tell you, they're winners because
sure.
I'll give you an example, and I'll name a couple other names, but Tommy Husky, who was their first quarterback, who's deceased, and then a guy named Jim Watson, who was moved around, and he was superintendent. Now he's teaching at UNC Charlotte. But we coming back, I think it's from Allegheny, and we got beat. And I didn't see no way forward. But Tommy and Jim sat back there right behind me where they were talking, and I was listening. And they were saying what games we had to win, who had to beat who, for us to be conference champions. So I knew right then this community had a winning attitude.
Wow.
And you talking about the people in the community, I can say honestly, in the 33 years I was there, I never asked for a thing that was within reason.
Wow.
Not one single thing within reason that we didn't get.
Yeah.
Any coach that ever coached with me will tell you, if I needed it, if I could convince Coach Eller I needed it, he knew somebody that would get it for us.
Yeah, how about that? Earl Eller, you are also a incredible member of the Wilkes County Hall of Fame, and what an honor that must be. And tell us about that moment when you were, they were saying the great things about you, and you were getting ready to make a 3-minute talk. How did that feel?
It felt humbling. It felt, I guess humbling is as good a word as any, and I'll never forget that night. You know, it's obvious I'm on oxygen.
Yeah.
I've got some other problem, but I'm an ex-smoker. That was a bad example I set for kids I've always hated. But, you know, back in the day, there wasn't too bad an image, and then you get addicted, and you just kind of move along with it. Justified. And I remember, and people have told me, several people come up and said, I remember your introductory line. I said, what? They say. And you went, after walking across the stage, if you don't smoke, don't start now.
How about that? Way to go.
But I did say basically the same thing. I don't know what I said there. I honestly don't. I've never listened to the tape because I'm afraid I'll embarrass myself. But I still give my mom and dad and my family ties. I'm from a good bloodline. We were not rich people. We were hardworking, rural folks, and that's basically all I've ever wanted to be, is be known as a hard worker, honest person.
Yeah. And you are a proud parent and a grandparent.
I've got a daughter, Christy Tyndall, and her husband Mitch. I've got granddaughters that will be 5 February 26th, and a grandson, Gavin, who will be 11 in March 1st.
Okay.
So,
and they live in Raleigh?
Live just past Raleigh, in a little
Okay.
town called Clayton.
All right.
It's basically a bedroom community for Raleigh now. Christy has, she's a nurse anesthetist. She says that better than I do, but anyway, she's the one who will push you to sleep. And she has took a job at Duke University, which is kind of been a sideline goal for her.
I bet.
And, you know, it's an honor for anybody in the medical field to work at Duke.
Earl, do you want to tell us about the morning that she, an intervention and a life-changing and a life-saving day in your life? Would you do that?
I don't mind a bit. We're making this more about me than more about other people.
It's
so
okay,
let's change gears and make it about other people a little bit. And yeah, Christy was supposed to come up. It's about Christmas of '02, and as always, I blame Mitch for that. They were late getting there, and I was having a drink or two of alcohol, getting ready, you know, but let me say that before I go there, I never drank and went to a North High event, or I never drank during the school day. But a lot of times when I get home, I'd have me a social drink. And to be honest with you, my social drinking got out of hand. But anyway, Christy come in, and we'd been up late the night before and played some pool. Them being late getting there, I had too much free time, and she come down and woke me up the next morning about 5 o'clock, sitting down on the bed. She said, "Daddy, get up. We're going to talk." And I think, oh, gosh. Well, she said, "Come on in here." So I did, and she, of all the things she said is, "Daddy, you are a sick man. Daddy, you've got a disease." And, you know, let's be frank about it. I am an alcoholic. I always will be an alcoholic. I didn't do anything wrong except I drank too much. Some people can drink an adequate amount, and there's a chemical change that takes place in your body. Some people's body processes alcohol different than others. Dad never could understand why you couldn't quit on willpower. But I think you've got to have some divine intervention. I do a 12-step program. I do a 12-step program regularly. That's one of my volunteer things I do. I'll go to a 12-step meeting at least once a day.
Once a day?
I work
wow.
I work with numerous people. I've got 5 people I work with right now directly. It's called a sponsor. Yeah. I don't generally reveal that information.
Sure.
I've got 5 more that's far enough along I don't have to work with them directly weekly. But I'm blessed. You know, Christy, when she come into the bedroom in there and told me that day and got me up, one of the other things that's highlighted my life, that stood out and shook me back into reality, you know, was, and it was a few months before I retired, and I drank too much before I retired. But once I retired and didn't have any responsibility and didn't have to make
goals
a good choice.
You talked about goals.
Yeah. No ambition for tomorrow.
Right.
I got the place I did extremely too much.
Okay.
Had a girlfriend, Sandra, and she kept telling me. And anyway, after Christy done that, Sandra left shortly thereafter, and And I remember seeing a sign, Christy kept, you've got to get some help, Daddy. I don't want you to quit on your own. You've got to get some help. And I encourage people today, don't try it on your own. It's according to where you are, but you know, more people, I think this is a true statistic, more people die of alcohol withdrawals than any other drug withdrawals.
Really? Wow.
We know we're talking a lot about opiates. Opiates are bad. They're terrible. They're quick. But more people die of alcohol-related deaths a year by a national statistic from Wake Forest University, I believe it was. 91,000 people die a year of alcohol-related.
So you went to rehab
I did,
shortly thereafter?
Went to Galax, left the 4th of February, and it's been a smoother ride ever since. You know, it's been 15 years since I went to Galax as of February the 4th, and my life is much better. I'm much happier.
You're making a difference in the lives of others.
I'm freed up to. I do volunteer work at elementary schools.
Let's talk about communities and schools.
I do. I enjoy that. Daddy Walker got me involved in that, and it's a great program. It really is. And some of these people, I have recruited a few people for that, and the Jetty even gave me the Community Schools Service Award or something one year, and I'm sure it was Jetty because I didn't know the rest of it. But anyway, it's again. You get to watch these kids grow.
But you got to be sober to do all that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they do all the background checks.
Oh, yeah. Good for you.
And you get to watch them grow from kindergarten through 3rd grade and start all over again.
Tell about Lunch Buddies.
The Lunch Buddies is a big project of it, and they don't always welcome you. The kids don't, to start with. They always a little suspicious. But then they warm up, and before the year's over, all the kids are running up to hug you. And
do you go to the same school each time you do that, Earl?
I've been to 3 different schools, but I have decided to go to Mulberry 2 days a week because it's a little closer.
Yeah.
And it's in the community that I live in now. So.
Right.
And then I do another community school program called the Surrogate Parent.
Wow.
And sometimes, for whatever reason, for school conferences, discipline conferences, or grade conferences, some parents don't show up. If we get one with a track record of a parent not showing up, the school calls it a surrogate parent. And my primary function, the way I see it is to see that Gary gets treated just as fairly as Earl does in that class. You know, Gary may be whatever background, and Earl. But as I used to promise people, you know, we had an open school district when I got to Wilkes County. But I promised them, if you'll come to North Wilkes, quit going across the river. If you'll come to North Wilkes, I promise you, we don't care who your mom and daddy is or what color you are, you'll be treated fairly.
Earl, I want to thank Wilkes Communications and River Street Productions and 100.9 WIFM and Dennis Huggins for connecting us. And what an honor it is to have you here today. And it's the Earl Eller, I have a new friend, you know, and I know about life-changing your daughter, that role, being in rehab and being able to help people because you walked the talk. You know, you made that commitment and said, you know, I'm not the person I used to be. I'm a better person, and being included in communities and schools. Close with us with just a little sense of your gratitude.
It's, let me go back and pick up one other thing. I would not feel right about myself if I didn't. Steve Harville, who lives in Florida, who was an educator here in Wilkes County for a long time, he led the charge to get the field house at North High named after me.
Yeah.
And the North Wilkes Hall of Fame committee put me on the Hall of Fame at North Wilkes in the first class. And all these things probably wouldn't have happened or continue to happen had Christy not have met with me that morning. Had I not have gone to Galax, and had I not made a commitment that even though I thought I was the life of the party, even though I thought I was happy, I'm a whole lot happier now, a whole lot more discontent. I can discuss those things. I'm not proud of them, but I'm not ashamed of them because I overcome them. And you know, that's kind of what I like to talk about sometimes, you know, too. You know, we talked about it the other day is you don't have to have a gigantic goal in life or a gigantic plan in life. You can turn this around any way you want to, but try to keep this part in. And again, my daddy, he used to say, Earl, I don't want you to be rich. I just want you to have a little more next year than you got this year.
Thank you very much. We've had the wonderful opportunity of giving and sharing and caring with Earl Eller, who's a tremendous advocate, a community servant, a person who believes that there's that of God in all of us, and who's given back in a very special way. So let's thank Earl Eller, and God bless you for being here, and I hope you'll come again.
Thank you, Gary, and my friend Dennis Huggins also.
There you go. Thank you.